Hey guys, Alana Lopez here. I'm really excited and honored to present the great Fred Kramer for our next edition of Inside the Design Studio. You think you know, but you have no idea.
So Fred, first question is, how old were you when you were adopted?
Somebody's been talking to you. I was under a year old, so I was 11 months old when I was adopted by my adoptive parents. They picked me up in Portland, Maine, from what was then an adoption agency, more so than a child services organization, called the Home for Little Wanderers. So I think around 10 or 11 months. And I actually have no real memory of my birth parents, but that's a whole other story.
Have you ever tried to meet them or reconnect with them?
No, my brother has. My brother is also an adopted child, but not my birth brother. So he has actually reached out to his birth parents. I simply always felt like the luckiest person on earth, and very, very blessed to have been adopted by the parents who did in fact adopt me. So I've never felt the need or the urge to go looking.
Both of your adopted parents were in the medical field.
Yes.
How did that influence you one way or another?
Good question. So my father was a doctor and my mother was a nurse, and within 6 months of being married in New York City, my father took my mother to northern Maine, Caribou, kicking and screaming all the way, I might add, to be the first doctor and nurse in a brand new hospital. It taught me work ethic, it taught me passion for the various businesses. My daughter today is a nurse. I thought a little bit about being a doctor, but I never warmed to the thought of surgery and blood. I think I respected the fact that he was building different things in his practice, and I always wanted to build other types of things.
Tell me about your high school basketball team.
You've got some great questions. My high school basketball team. High school basketball, high school sports in general was a lot of fun. It teaches you about teamwork, it teaches you about winning and losing, it teaches you about a bit about humility. And I'd go back and do those 4 years again, anytime. We were good as far as a central Massachusetts kind of suburban team would be, but every time we went to play a school in Boston or just outside of Boston, we got our tails handed to us. So it teaches you a lot about humility, as I said, and a lot about how to handle loss and adversity and keep on trying. I wrote a sports news item called Kramer's Corner, Kramers Korner, for a number of years at Ad Inc. To chronicle the life of our softball team, and it fulfilled an enthusiasm I have for athletics, and always thought. And folks advised me early on that my voice was maybe something that I should think about leveraging in some way, and I always sort of laughed it off. I'd like to think I can adequately replicate Johnny Most's Havlicek stole the ball against Philadelphia way back when. All of this for Jimmy Sinis, of course.
How long have you been married to your wife?
Sue. So Sue Kramer is the sister of one of my best friends in high school. She hunted me down in Philadelphia when I was going to grad school at the University of Pennsylvania, and a year or so later we got married. So that was in 1980. So 33 years. She's a saint. She's going straight to heaven. She puts up with a lot. But we both, we both know that everything we have and everything my kids have is due to Ad. So that's the passion for the company, and that'll never disappear. I was laughing, talking with Frank this morning about his new child, and I told him a story about kind of getting a paternity leave policy in place at Ad Inc. back in 1985 when I had Lauren. And Sue and I had our first child. Fatherhood is a big deal.
You worked with Wilson Pollock,
I did.
the artist. How did that influence you?
Well, Wilson was the gentleman who hired me, really as a baby architect in 1981. And Ad Inc. was 14 people at the time. They had just finished a project called Pickering Wharf in Salem on the waterfront. It had won some AIA awards. It had been published. They had finished a project called The Garage in Harvard Square. Both fabulous projects, and I interviewed at Ad Inc. based on those two projects. So he was really my mentor. I had a lot of respect for Wilson in terms of his ability to balance work and play and family life, and I think that as well as the delicate balance between art of architecture and the business of architecture is what I think Ad Inc. has ingrained in its blood in the firm. But I think he always said it's a roller coaster, Fred. It's an up and down environment because we're tied to the real estate cycle. And I think just those professorial statements by him gave me some perspective about the business.
How did you handle this past recession? What was it like?
It was brutal. I'd been in, so in the last recession in 2009, by the time 2009 came along, I'd been in the business for nearly 30 years. And in all of those years, I have never experienced a recession as deep and as long as this one was. In many ways, it forces one to think about a different way of leading. And I think leading in hard times is much, much, much more difficult than leading in good times. Mm-hmm. So the goal became about survival. We ended up probably letting go 40-50% of our workforce in 2009 in both the Boston and the Miami office. And I've always been a people person. I grew my family at Ad Inc. I take great pride in the fact that others can do the same thing. And letting people go was the worst. It was the worst year of my professional career. I think that was the heartache, and there were really nights where it was, will we make it? So it was very difficult. And, I still get pretty bummed about it today. But the goal was always hold the team together until you get to the other side of this mess. And it was thin. It was thin for a while, but we got to the other side of the mess, and and here we are today, 4 years later, having some of the most exciting opportunity and hiring some of the best staff that we've ever had. I think designing a firm is a lot like designing a business. In the first 20 years of my professional career, I loved being an architect. I loved the service side of the business. I loved the relationship side of the business. I loved making buildings. I enjoy the relationship side more. And it's a good thing, because things you don't enjoy, you don't actually do very well.
Would you ever consider going somewhere else?
I'd never go to another design firm. I think the way we think about things and the way that we do things is second to none. The culture that you guys are developing in Miami is entirely consistent with the overall culture of the firm, yet unique to a Miami environment. And I think that's a very exciting thing to watch. And culture will hold you together in good times and bad times. And I think we have an outstanding culture. And I do have other things that I would passionately like to do. Some of which don't really have to do with architecture or interior design or brand. They're different things. They're
what would be those
different
things?
Approaches. Well, I'm a pretty, I would say, kind of going back to the discussion about being an adopted kid. I've always felt very lucky to be, adopted by the mom and dad that adopted me. So I spend a fair amount of time trying to help other people outside the office. I get involved in charities. I'm I'm a sucker for somebody that needs help with something. And if it were about giving back in some meaningful way to people who are less fortunate, then that's something I'll do regardless of any other kind of professional activity that I pursue. I don't want to stop working. I wouldn't be the president of another design firm, I can tell you that, and I don't necessarily want to go back and be an architect working with clients on projects. So it's going to be a next stage in some way, shape, or form. We'll see where that goes. We got work to do at Ad Inc. right now, though.
What is your favorite word?
Passion.
Least favorite word?
Can't do.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Wow, profession. I'd like to run a nonprofit.
What profession would you not like to do?
Toll collector.
Well, you'd be replaced anyway.
Exactly right. My fast lane I wouldn't have a job.
What would you do if you won the lottery?
Well, I'd put a bunch of money aside for my kids, but not money that they can get before they retire. I would give a bunch of whatever I got to the American Diabetes Association, where I do a fair amount of work because my daughter's a diabetic. I'd give a bunch of money to the Home for Little Wanderers, which I still work with today, which is where the agency that I was adopted from.
What makes you mad?
People who let their ego get in the way of the team. Team is everything.
What makes you happy?
Other people being happy.